So Far, So Good. So What? Is the third studio album by American thrash metal band Megadeth. It was released in January 1988 through Capitol Records. A remixed and remastered edition including several bonus tracks was reissued in August 2004. It is the band's only album recorded with drummer Chuck Behler and guitarist Jeff Young, both of whom were fired immediately after the subsequent tour. So Far, So Good. So What? Features music performed at very fast tempos with technical ability. Lyrically, frontman and guitarist Dave Mustaine addresses a variety of topics, including nuclear holocaust and freedom of speech. The record was well received among contemporary music critics, although retrospective analysis has been less favorable. It managed to enter the top 30 on the Billboard 200 with no commercial radio play. It charted in several other countries as well. The album was eventually certified platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America and indicated Megadeth's forthcoming emergence from the underground scene. Background and production: guitarist Chris Poland and drummer Gar Samuelson had been expelled from the band following the conclusion of the Peace Sells tour for disruptive behavior, including Poland's habit of pawning band equipment to pay for drugs. Samuelson was immediately replaced by his drum technician, Chuck Behler. However, a new guitarist would take longer to emerge. At first, the band hired guitarist Jay Reynolds from the band Malice, but Reynolds was not up to the task of recording, and was subsequently replaced by his guitar teacher, Jeff Young. Dave Mustaine has since stated his regret for the way he handled Reynolds' firing. Work on the album started while Reynolds was in the band, but continued after the induction of Young. To mix the album, the label turned to Paul Lanny, who previously had remixed the band's previous album, Peace Sells. But who's buying? Mustaine was initially skeptical, but later became very irate with Lanny's eccentricities, and his way of handling things. To mix the album, Lanny relocated himself and Mustaine to Bearsville Studios, near Woodstock, New York, ostensibly for the purpose of inspiration. Mustaine decided he had had enough when he, having just awakened and made coffee, noticed Lanny outside in his underwear feeding an apple to a deer. Mustaine flew back to Los Angeles later that day and fired Lanny, who was replaced by Michael Wagener. Mustaine has since criticized Wagener's pedestrian mixing efforts, citing the album's muddy feel. In particular, Mustaine was able to recruit Sex Pistols guitarist Steve Jones to perform guitar parts on Anarchy in the UK. Music and lyrics: according to music critic J.D. Considine of Spin, So Far, So Good. So What? Displays music performed at volumes approaching the threshold of pain. The album features fast guitar solos, multiple tempo changes and technical dexterity. Mike Stagno of Sputnik Music observed that the album offers the classic Take No Prisoners style which is commonly associated with Megadeth. However, he noted that the sound does not differ much from the other underground metal bands from that period. Jim Farber of Rolling Stone called Mustaine's vocals bloodthirsty, and praised the musicianship for keeping rhythmic pace even at the most anarchic moments. Los Angeles Times journalist Dennis Hunt noted that the music was filled with extensive and torrid instrumentals and described Mustaine's singing as a combination of extreme shrieking and screaming. Despite the positive overview, Anarchy in the UK received some negative criticism, partially because it was perceived to lack the rebelliousness of the original version. The lyrical themes on the album explore a variety of subjects, from nuclear holocaust to revisionism and censorship. Still, the majority of the songs are accompanied by the same sentiment of disillusion and nihilism as their previous two albums. Unlike traditional topics related to heavy metal music, the song In My Darkest Hour contains emotional lyrics which deal with loneliness and isolation. Dave Mustaine revealed that he tried to write about subject matters that were in touch with reality, including social issues and taboo topics. The lyrics on Megadeth's cover of Anarchy in the UK were slightly mistaken because Mustaine claimed he had heard them incorrectly. Songs: the album's first track, Into the Lungs of Hell, is an instrumental composition which features synthesized horns, winds and percussion. Set the World Afire is the first song Dave Mustaine wrote for Megadeth after being fired from Metallica. He was a member of Metallica from 1982 to 83, and was dismissed just before Metallica recorded its debut album Kill 'Em All. He later said that he wrote the lyrics during his journey home from the departure. Inspiration for the song came from a newspaper he read while on the bus back to California. Originally intended to be titled Megadeth, Mustaine later decided to use the name, minus the A in death, for the band instead. Anarchy in the UK is a Sex Pistols cover, which quickly became a staple of the band's live set. Over the years, the song was dropped from the set list because of its anti-Christian viewpoint. Mary Jane tells a story about a young witch buried alive by her father near the Loon Lake Cemetery in Minnesota. According to the legend, anyone who dared to disturb her grave was doomed to a prompt death. The song features descending guitar lines and begins with Mustaine summoning her spirit during the introduction. 502 Inches is about driving fast cars. In My Darkest Hour was written by Mustaine shortly after the death of Metallica bassist Cliff Burton. Mustaine had found out through word of mouth, as his former bandmates never contacted him about the tragic event that occurred in Europe. He later recalled that he was extremely unhappy that day and wrote the song in one sitting. Liar is a rant directed at past member Chris Poland. Hook in Mouth declaims censorship and the Parents Music Resource Center. Mustaine elaborated that the lyrics were aimed at those who were fucking around with our constitutional rights and trying to take away our freedom of speech. Critical reception. The album received positive feedback from music critics at the time of its release. In a contemporary review, Holger Stratman from Rock Hard hailed the album as the new masterpiece of Megadeth, and asserted that the band had created a great follow-up to their highly acclaimed Peace Sells. But who's buying? Jim Farber of Rolling Stone also gave the album a favorable review, saying it propelled the group right at the top of the thrash rock heap. He concluded his review by saying, "Amid today's narcoleptic pop scene, albums like So Far, So Good, So What offer a disruptive noise that's welcome indeed." Writing for Spin, J.D. Considine felt that the record showed a genuine maturity for the band. Robert Christgau reacted enthusiastically towards the album and wrote that Megadeth garnered its modest portions of profit and respect with their latest studio release. He gave special praise to Anarchy in the UK, commenting that Mustaine covers the Sex Pistols like a champ. Retrospective reviews, however, tend to be more critical of the album. AllMusic's Steve Huey criticized the album for lacking the conceptual unity and musical bite of its predecessor. According to him, the album wants to sound threatening but mostly comes off as forced and somewhat juvenile, citing the cover track as an example. Mike Stagno of Sputnik Music opined that the record is a fairly decent album, but not a great one. He felt that apart from Set the World Afire, and Mary Jane, the rest of the album feels somewhat uninspired. Conversely, Adrian Begrand from MSN Music opined that the record was somehow ignored in the band's discography. Touring. The tour that followed the album's release was the first to feature new band members Chuck Behler and Jeff Young. Bassist David Ellefson said that previous members Gar Samuelson and Chris Poland were tired of constantly being on the road and their departure was inevitable. He further revealed that drummer Behler was appointed shortly before because the band feared that Samuelson would not be able to continue touring. However, some problems occurred during the Australian leg of the tour. The band was forced to cancel some of these shows because of drug issues. Mustaine claimed that the group returned home because guitarist Young ran out of heroin, which Young denied, stating that it was Mustaine who wanted to go back to Los Angeles and seek rehabilitation. Both Young and Behler were fired immediately after the end of the tour, in August 1988. Megadeth started performing the album's songs live before the record was released. During 1987 they toured with other thrash metal bands such as Krita and Overkill at a number of European venues. The following year Megadeth appeared with more established heavy metal acts such as Ronnie James Dio for some shows in North America. Later in 1988 the group made an appearance at the Monsters of Rock festival, but were dropped from the lineup after one show. Dave Mustaine explained that the band toured quite often because they were not receiving much media exposure. "We do a lot of shows and sell records by word of mouth." Los Angeles Times reported that So Far, So Good, So What sold 400,000 copies 1 month after its release, becoming Megadeth's fastest-selling album at that point. The record eventually went platinum and indicated Megadeth's forthcoming emergence from the underground scene. Track listing: all songs written and composed by Dave Mustaine, except where noted. Personnel, production and performance credits are adapted from the album liner notes. Charts, certifications, references. Bibliography: Arnett, Jeffrey Jensen. Metalheads, Heavy Metal Music and Adolescent Alienation. Westview Press. ISBN A0-8133-2813-6. Buckley, Peter. The Rough Guide to Rock. Rough Guides. ISBN A1-84353-105-4. Joyner, David Lee. American Popular Music. McGraw-Hill Higher Education. ISBN A0-07-241424-3. Kahn Harris, Keith. Extreme Metal, Music and Culture on the Edge. Berg Publishers. ISBN A1-84520-399-2. Mustaine, Dave. Mustaine, A Heavy Metal Memoir. New York, USA, HarperCollins. ISBN A978-0-06-171437-5. Pillsbury, Glenn. Damage Incorporated, Metallica and the Production of Musical Identity. New York, USA, Routledge. ISBN A1-136-09122-X. External links: So Far, So Good. So What? At Discogs.